All right, here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Flutes Loot stream. Trying something new and that I was interested in. Thought it'd be fun to reminisce a little bit about Curse of Strahd and some of my favorite memories. And so I want to do that, but I've learned, because I'm such a pro streamer, that I should check my sound first. And so, like, I can see these meters here, but I don't know what it sounds like to everybody. So you let me know what it sounds like. Hopefully it's all good. But I will be checking my phone here real quick just to see what it sounds like. Hold on. Sounds fine to me. Okay. Amino, hello. Hi. Thanks for being here. Yeah, I don't know how many people are going to be interested in this stream. I'll probably keep the stream up afterwards because I think it's fun. And I'd like to hear more people who are in Curse of Strahd do this sort of stream. Let me know if the music's too loud. I've just got some basic music in the background. It seems okay to me, but different for all of you. So, Curse of Strahd is the only official adventure that I've run more than once. I've run it 3 times. Debatably 2.5, because one of them was they got to Vallaki and the Festival of the Blazing Sun, and they had to split. I had to split the 2 groups. I have a video about that. It wasn't fun, but essentially I've completed the campaign 3 times, and now I'm running like homebrew campaign, but I do have fond memories of Barovia and that I've run it more than once, and so I'm just going to go through each location and let you know what some of my favorite memories are. So, first of all, let's get to the gates of Barovia and how I got people into Barovia. My favorite was the first time I ran it, which was the whole party was together. The next campaign, I had them all split up and they were brought together into Barovia. And what I liked about the first time I did it was they were all together for one thing, but there was a bit of adventure and decisions to be made before they actually got to Barovia. Now, the way that I did that was I included the werewolves as well as, gosh, it's been so long, I'm forgetting, Argynvostholt. He delivered the letter to them at an inn. I got them like a cool inn that they stayed in that was like on top of a hill run by this portly halfling. So original, I know. And so they had the Argynvostholt quest, but there was also rumors of werewolves and mists in the area. And so my plan was actually to have one of the adventurers, her husband and daughter were going to be wolf-napped. And that was going to be a hook into the werewolves' den. But they ended up saving them from the werewolves that were coming through the mist. And they did great. And so I let them have their win. I didn't force that. And then they went to the place called Barovia that they had heard about from Argynvostholt. And that's why when they slipped into the mist and into the gates of Barovia. And at that point, they were very skeptical of the swinging gates and everything. I found that once I had the players in all the campaigns get to the gates, they were very suspicious of them. They thought there was going to be some ambush, because it is an interesting point to have. There's really nothing that happens there. It's just like an aesthetic checkpoint. But players would try to like avoid the gate and like climb the mountains on the side, and that's when I had them find out about what the mists would do. And that was a good time. And the swinging gates and everything just really set a good tone. After that comes Death House. I never skipped Death House. I did it each time. And I've even run it as a one-shot when I was practicing running games online back in 2020. And I wanted to see what it was like to run a game with Roll20. Excuse me. And so I enjoyed that, but Death House, my favorite part about Death House, and I think I talk about this in my 13 top tips for running Curse of Strahd, was the foreshadowing. Because there were fun moments where the players really latched on to Rose and Thorn, and and the poltergeist or haunted suit of armor pushed them off the ledge. I had Mr. Durst's corpse hanging in the spiral stairs because I decided to, because one of the fun little details that DMs get to make their own is what happened to the third stone that was buried at the Wizard of Wine's winery. The one that would make the soil so fertile. So I decided to make it that the Dursts had stolen it to try to deal with a famine. And they had been told about the stone by the hags at Old Bonegrinder, because I involved them a little bit more in certain ways. And so it was fun for the players to get that stone right at the beginning and wonder what it was when it was glowing in Mr. Durst's old pocket. So I enjoyed that, but also going down into the depths, and this isn't my original idea, but when you go down and there's all those cloisters, sconces, I don't know what they're called, but they're kind of like a section where you could put a bunch of different items. And I enjoyed putting lots of different items that foreshadowed things later. Some players latched onto them and thought they needed to take them. And some players did remember them later on, like, oh, this item related to this and that, you know. And I really enjoyed that about it. I did go for the kind of like the baby and the flesh golem twist at the end of Death House, but I also ran it where it was just pretty much straight as the book had it, and really enjoyed that as well. And so I tried different things with the ending of Death House, but the rush out of Death House was very cinematic each time, and I really enjoyed that. You know what else I enjoyed about Death House is when players beforehand would try to glance through the windows into the house, and then they couldn't really see anything, and then when they were in the house and then looked outside, they couldn't see anything. And that was just very eerie and tone setting for them. Very enjoyable. And then, and by the way, if anyone's listening to the stream and they want to share what their favorite moments were from these locations, I'd love to hear about them and talk about them while I'm on the stream. And that just sounds fun to me. I also can switch between the Barovia map and my PDF, so if anyone ever does need a visual aid or a reminder of what I'm talking about, I definitely can do that. And so, let's see. Yeah, so Death House was a good time. And then, let me switch back for now. Oh, and then I also didn't waste time with them getting out of Death House and then wandering on the old Svalich Road towards the village of Barovia. I just took the tip, I don't remember where I got the tip, to just when they get out of Death House and to really punctuate the haunted nature of Death House, that the house itself is a monster. I did have the Death House, when they exit, be like, suddenly they're in the village of Barovia and everyone in the street is just so dour and just like, what the blazes is going on? These people jumping out of this house, and they talk about the house burning down, but they turn around and like it looks fine, sort of thing, you know? And that was really enjoyable, and it was a fun way to end that first session with the players stumbling into Barovia. I think I did have the gift basket idea of Rahadin dropping off some cheese and wine, and that was a good time. But then the players immediately started to pursue different ways of exploring the village. I had a hook to the general store, the store there, as well as them meeting Ismark and him taking them to meet Irina and dealing with her bite and everything. I actually threw in Rahadin with the ability to go invisible, and so after he dropped off the gift basket, I actually had Rahadin go and just kind of dwell in Ismark and Irina's home. And one of the players, I forget if it's because I started them at like level 3, if I did. I think they started at level 1, and then I did once you get to the top of Death House, you get level 2, and then when you escape, you're level 3. I think I did that. And so one of them was able to cast See Invisibility or something, and they were able to spot Rahadin. And it was like this huge moment. They were like, "Bah!" You know, but they tried to keep it on the down low so that he wouldn't know. And they actually planted some false information, and then she, the player who was able to see Rahadin, was able to see him leave the window, slip out later. But they were trying to use it to their advantage to plant false information about what they were going to do with Irina and Ismark. That was a good time. And then I also enjoyed in the village of Barovia how the players wanted to redeem Mad Mary and help her with her daughter. Like, they really tried to talk some sense into her and help her. That was important to them. And then the traditional almost dying to... gosh, I'm a little slow on the names now. Father Donovich's son, Doru, yeah. And so the traditional player goes down the basement by themselves and almost dies. I think they had to use a fog cloud to save him once they came to. But that was enjoyable. And then I think some of them actually set Doru loose and they had to go put him down in the street. And it was like a big scene, if I remember right. But, one of my favorite things was the players were talking, when they noticed Father Donovich in his church, how he has that noose hanging, like he's contemplating ending it all. They also needed to get the key to the basement, right? And so they were talking to him about it. And when he took the key from around his neck, the player's like, make sure that's the only thing that goes around your neck, Father. And it was like a really good role-playing moment. Really enjoyed that. Once they left the village of Barovia and they got like, they would get like horses and things, they would go to Tser Pool over here. So Tser Pool, I don't know. I always call it Tser Pool. It's interesting because I've actually had the players come back here, and I feel like most people, when they do this adventure, they stop there and then they never go there again. What is my Doru voice? Let me see if I can remember. It's like, oh, please, Father. Father, please. You know, like that sort of, that was the voice I did for Doru. It's like very sad, like distant, like, Father, I'm starving. That was my Doru voice. And I think it worked pretty well too, getting the eerie, like I didn't have players ever just like skip that. Like they wanted to know what was going on with that, you know. Let me know if you want any other voices while we're talking. That's a fun thing for me to share. So Tser Pool, one of my favorite memories. Well, each time I did do the card reading, the tarot reading, Tarocca reading here. I always did the Tarocca reading random. I think I might have removed like 3 results from each, so I was like, I don't want that one ever, but I don't remember what they were. But I kept that randomness because I told the players, hey, this card reading is definitely something that makes this campaign unique, and not only based on your choices, but there are certain aspects that are different every time that make your play experience unique. So I tried to lean into that, and I enjoyed it. But Tser Pool, at some point, I actually had the players return there after they had angered the old Bonegrinder hags, and they had gone ethereal and gone into hiding. So I had the hags spying on them and trying to pick their moment to attack, and they wanted to get revenge. There was a reason for it. I think I tied them more to Baba Lysaga, and I kind of treated it like Baba was this disapproving mother, and so the hags tried to kill Irina, the short of it. And I think that had something to do with Baba Lysaga. Again, this was 4 years ago, so I don't remember every detail of how or why I did it, but I had reasons. And so the hags attacked in the night. They were polymorphing and doing all kinds of stuff, but the players ended up succeeding and saving Irina pretty narrowly, I would say. And that tied up the loose end for the hags. The other party was not so lucky. The hags plagued them a little bit more. And there's actually a few more memories I have of the hags in some other locations as we're talking, so I'll share those too. But and one of my other favorite memories at Tser Falls was when the players came back to Madame Ava towards the end game of the campaign. And I think one of the players at like the Amber Temple or something happened, made a deal, and they lost their eyes. And I was really proud of this. So they go to Madame Ava, and she can cast Regeneration, whatever it's called. A 7th level spell. And so I had her... No, the player hadn't... Okay, the player hadn't lost their eyes. That wasn't it. I had used a thing where the players were told they needed to get, like, the eyes of a Vistani woman or something like that. Yeah, it was something like that. And so they went to Madame Ava, and they were just talking about it because they were kind of wondering if they were going to have to take Esmeralda's eyes. And then they ended up asking Madame Ava for her eyes, and so I had her like take out her eyes and then regenerate them with the regenerate spell, and she gave them her eyes so they could do something. I forget what the eyes were for, but it was a pretty dramatic moment, and I was quite proud of that I kept in mind what spells Madame Ava could cast and just made it super creepy. Like, the players were just like awestruck about that one. And then so those were some of my favorite memories at Tser Falls. I also enjoyed, and players often had Mad Mary, and later on her daughter, who is named, Mad Mary and her daughter. It's on the tip of my tongue. My brain's just saying like Griselda or something like that. Help me out. Well, no, I can look it up before we move on here. So here in the thing, Village of Barovia, we've got Mad Mary and her daughter, who is named, oh, what is it? Gertruda. Okay, thank you, PDF. No, that won't bug me now. So Gertruda, they sought refuge at Tser Falls later on, and the players really didn't know where they could ever put someone safe, and so they settled for Tser Falls a few times. And then Tser Falls, I did do a Strahd encounter there once, and I did like someone's idea of having him threaten a wizard and holding him over the falls. Like, you're not the first wizard I've thrown over here to foreshadow how he had defeated Mordenkainen. Not foreshadow it happening, but foreshadow the players finding out more about that. So that was a good time. And then later on, in my first party, they actually had a big fight with Strahd here, because Rahadin and a group of Vistani tried to use his blowgun, and I used a sleep poison, and tried to take Irina towards the end of the campaign. And then one of the players did something. I don't remember if they chose to or if they accidentally included in an area of effect Irina, and they actually, I think they killed her. Yeah. And so lightning struck, and Strahd came flying out of the castle, sort of thing. I don't remember. But that was a good fight, and they hey Nelda. She's like, yeah, we did kill Irina. Good to see you, Nelda. The Nelda actually drew the in the thumbnail for this stream. It's a picture of, oh gosh, the golem woman that the abbot creates, whose name is Vasilka. Yes. Right? That's not one of Strahd's wives. It's Vasilka. Vasilka is Bay. Yeah, I think so. And so, yeah, she drew that picture of Vasilka that I used in the thumbnail. And I've had a few people compliment that drawing and wonder where it's from. And they're like, yeah, my friend drew that. So they kill Strahd, and then the cleric in the party does an attempt of divine intervention, the cleric ability, and succeeds. And whenever I do divine intervention, I have it be divine intervention. I might have it be essentially a spell effect I'm describing, but I make it pretty dramatic. And so I described Strahd being whisked away by wind back to his castle, and that gave the group the chance to fly off to actually a cairn, or one of the, what are they called? The different little circle sites that are around Barovia that people like to homebrew to be more significant based on the old Barovia Ravenloft setting. It's the, oh, what are they called? The Fanes. Yeah, the Fanes. Fane sites. And so they actually, so they flew over the mountains from Tser Falls over to that, which is like, as you can see here. So yeah, basically they're at the falls there, by the bridge, and then they flew up over this way to seek refuge at Old Bonegrinder and the Fane there. And that's where they actually ended up having their final confrontation with Strahd there instead of in the castle. In that one, I made him have higher level spells that were elemental based on him being the land, like Barovia doing things for him. But even the players were kind of regretful. They're like, oh, we kind of wanted to fight him in the castle, you know? But they ended up defeating him and putting him in sunlight so that he couldn't regenerate. And then they had to do all the stuff. And I did usually give them the option to have someone like take Strahd's place. It just seemed like players usually like that. I think in both my groups I did that, but if I were to do it again, I would just lean harder into Death House's foreshadowing and have more people foreshadow as they talk about like things never change and the dead always come back, and that sort of thing. That's why I say in my video that I recommend doing all that foreshadowing, because I have a video all about Death House and the foreshadowing. There's so much in it. It's a good time. But yeah, Tser Falls. Anything else I'd say about that? They also had like a water walking battle like down at the bottom of the falls, and people were falling off of the bridge. It was a good time. You know, anytime people are falling around and getting split up and there's water to make it's just like a very dynamic battle. So I recommend taking advantage of Tser Falls for anybody. Then we get up to more gates of Barovia. I'm actually going to come back to the castle last, I think. So let's go up to Old Bonegrinder. So Old Bonegrinder and the hags. Infamous, right? I'm trying to think if my players ever went straight there. I think they always went to Vallaki because they needed to get shelter, and they were with Ismark and Irina, trying to get them to safety in Vallaki. Some of them opted to try to go through take a shortcut through the forest here, because you know how it goes all the way around, and so they were trying to cut through. But they had some creepy encounters in the woods, and they were like, nope, staying on the road. Which is important to have some fun encounters on the Svalich Road. Definitely. And in the forest, wherever they might go. And I made it clear that if they go off in the wilderness and they're not on the Svalich Road, that they're probably going to run into nastier things, which I will mention later. But Old Bonegrinder, it was really important to me that the hags keep their ability to like go ethereal, and so they can kind of be a little bit brash because they know they have an escape parachute, right? They can just disappear and go ethereal. And so and by the way, in Vallaki, one of the players again cast See Invisibility, and I had one of the hags just kind of spying on the village at that time, and she sees this hag just like up on a rooftop during the festival and stuff, because they were wondering if something was going to go down at the festival, and they ended up casting what is it called? It's like not Wall of Force, but it's like a sphere you put someone in. Gosh, I'm blanking on it. What is it? It's like a hamster ball. But anyway, they put this hag in a hamster ball, and she just looked annoyed. And I also roleplayed the hags as just being like potty mouths, and they would just say really filthy things. I had them use the word chode a lot. They'd always call the players chodes. Autolux Resilient Sphere. Thank you, Nuclear Donut. Thank you. And they'd always be like, you chode. They're just these filthy hags. And it was so funny. Like the players would just laugh whenever they were talking to the hags, because they were just so filthy. Anyway, back to old Bonegrinder. So one group, they kind of found out ahead of time what the hags were about, and the hags kind of were like in a fortress sort of situation. Like the players surrounded it and tried to burn it down. The other group, they like went inside and checked things out before things went south, you know. But the hags were tricky, and I always like explaining hag spells like it's very odd and esoteric, and so that's also a good time. And obviously the one group, I added the Fane as a big deal there, and I treated it like they had to cleanse the Fanes in order to depower Strahd. And so Strahd kind of, what were the things I gave him? I think it was like +10 armor class, spell resistance, and the things some people do where he can hear people if they say his name or they're talking about him. And so they had to cleanse the Fanes in order to take away those protections, his anchoring to the land that gave him extra powers. It was stuff like that. And that gives the player some clear goals on the way, which I enjoyed having those clear goals. I also, if I were to do it again, I don't know if I like experience points more than milestone. In this particular like sandboxy setting, it was nice to give them clear goals that they knew would make them level up, as well as they would have chances to get stronger, like by fighting items or gaining boons, that sort of stuff, you know. But I digress. So the Fane there at old Bonegrinder, I had it be haunted by all the children that the hags had consumed and ground up into their pies, right? Oh, I forgot about the pies. Let me talk about that in a minute. But I made it so that they had to defeat the hags and take whatever that stone is that hags make when they have a coven, and it gives them extra powers. They had to get that, and so they were actually panicked when the hags got away at first, and they had to figure out how to find them or get the hags to come to them, because in order to cleanse that site, they needed that. Because it was kind of like they were storing souls of children, or like anchoring them with that thing so they could corrupt the Fane that was there. Which again was like a Babala Saga thing, you know, seeing to it that the Fanes are corrupted, putrefied, that sort of thing. So that was a good time. So the pies. Back in the village of Barovia, I did have some players choose to eat the pies and become quite addicted to them. And I remember when they found out what was in the pies later, I did a pretty good job of hiding their origin and what they were, which I know is a challenge for some people, but I seem to do a good job. And so when they got the pies, and found out what they were, there was like this oh moment, right? And yeah, the megaliths, that's what they're called here at Old Bonegrinder. So and it was also fun. What is it in the Old Bonegrinder? I had fun with the little potions they have in there. What are they again? They're like up at the top, aren't they? I don't remember what they are, but they are charming little potions that the players took very seriously. Oh, where are they? I forget. But those are fun. Don't skip out on those little potions, because those are very hag-like potions for you to use. And I enjoy that. So, Morgantha and her coven. I also found some images that are like really innocent of like her and her daughters, and just really sold that they seemed fine. They didn't seem like hags, right? Which is a big deal. Anytime you run hags, you don't want it to seem too much like they're hags. But the more players stick around and pay attention, the signs are there. I enjoy that. I also gave them a chance to save some children that were in there, in the boxes in the windmill, which was enjoyable. So yeah, Old Bonegrinder is a good time. For as far as Barovia goes, right? So Mount Baratok, where Mordenkainen is. At one point, fleeing from the festival, when they recruited Victor in Vallaki, they flew with him over Lake Zarovich, which was a fun thing to describe. and they were hiding out over in the forest by Mountain Baratok, and they were approached by the stag, the elk that is Mordenkainen polymorphed. And basically, it becomes this moment where they realize Victor can be left with him to maybe hone his wizardry skills and to be safe. And so they ended up leaving him with Mordenkainen. And then I let Mordenkainen have his Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion spell, but it was kind of like almost like a Fae feature where there was like a waterfall that if you walked through it, you'd be in the mansion sort of thing. And so that was kind of like a safe place until the players gave it away that Strahd found out about it. And that kind of triggered the end game for that group. And that was the group that ended up killing Irina at Tser Falls. I don't remember where they were going. Maybe they were going to see Madame Ava or something. But they were trying to go somewhere. And they knew it was dangerous because they were going to be passing by the castle's territory, right? But they went for it. And so Mordenkainen, how did I roleplay him? I think I just treated him as just this addled old man with magic. And I don't think they ever figured out his name or like how to help him. But it was fun to just kind of roleplay him as this mysterious man with powerful magic out in the wilderness. And how to kind of... maybe it was they were going to find his spell book at Tser Falls in the Tser pool. And they did find it, I believe. At least one group did. I made that a treasure that you could find if you spend a lot of time combing through the riverbed. And that was a good time. And so, yeah, that was my deal with Mountain Baratok. And then Lake Zarovich, the main thing there is Bluto and how he's got Arabelle tied up to go... either he's being drunken or he's trying to sacrifice her to some eldritch god or whatever. And the players enjoyed thwarting that. That's a good little side quest where the players can actually achieve something. Arabelle's a delightful NPC. And yeah. So it's fun to have them like try to figure out what's going on up there and intervene. Like the druid would turn into something like a dolphin or something and go like help out while someone else, I don't even remember, but it was a good time. I realized I should also back up and try to recount what I did with the Taraka reading and like where things were. The first destined ally was Vasilka, the abbot's Irina golem fill-in, and the other group's destined ally was Arigal. And so, and those are two great destined allies. Strahd's enemy. Arigal is fun because he's got this duality and this traitorous nature. Vasilka's got this tragic past, and I roleplayed her as not being able to talk, but like moaning, and then later on she was able to start talking more. But then as the abbot turned on them, and after they eventually killed the abbot, which I'll talk more about that, the abbot is an underutilized... I bet you I can give you some good ideas for the abbot. But at some point, Vasilka started to deteriorate and started to like cease to be able to talk, and the players were like really sad because they really loved Vasilka. Anyway, so at Vallaki, there's so much to talk about with Vallaki. My players, there was one group that I gave them the blacksmith in town to do stuff. I don't think the book has a blacksmith, so I had to develop that on the fly. Or I used someone's, maybe like Mandy Mod, maybe she had a blacksmith shop that I used. But I had, they said they wanted silver for silvering weapons. They wanted to be able to defend themselves from wolves and stuff. And so I had the blacksmith have some knowledge about probably one of the least touched things in Vallaki, I would bet, is that mirror with like the assassin in it. The assassin ghost in the Burgomaster's mansion. And because like even if you find that mirror, you don't know how to like summon this thing. And That's an interesting part of the adventure. And so I had the blacksmith kind of like on the slide be like, I know where there's some silver in this place. And the players had chose to do a heist of the mirror. And they were like casting pass without trace to get around town and try to just like hide their presence a little bit. Just make themselves less noticeable. That was a good time. Like someone would be up like talking to Victor, the other person's trying to get the mirror. And then there's like a crowd coming to like, I think, what happened? People were revolting, and so they came to the Burgomaster's mansion and they were like demanding his head and all that kind of stuff. That was fun. And I think Victor's such a fun NPC as well. He's got that tragedy behind himself and the magic and all the like arcane traps. There's just kind of like this oh dang moment when the players realize like how competent of a spellcaster he is. I really enjoy that. And so and then also I enjoyed having the invisible spy at Fiona Wachter's house, and the like skeletons in the basement and everything in her little cult room. It was so fun to roleplay her and like the political intrigue she was going for and have the players wonder if she was good or bad. They end up exploring upstairs and finding all the interesting trinkets she has and her dead husband preserved. That's just a good time. What else was interesting in Vallaki? So I did do the Feast of St. Andrew. I think they always got the bones back. I did have some fun with the bones. I made it so that they could power up werewolves if a werewolf chewed on the bones of St. Andrew. And so I had Kirill, the werewolf leader, become like a Loopgaro, that like souped up werewolf that we have in, what is it, Mordenkainen's? Or is it, no, I think it's from the Ravenloft book. Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. Which I don't remember if it was out yet. But I just powered up the werewolf from chewing on the bones, which is something that the abbot did after the abbot was thwarted and had to fly away. And so he was just kind of like always up in the sky watching the players, trying to find his moment, and he forged an alliance with the werewolves to try to kill the players. And so actually they had, the players arrived in Vallaki after getting back from the west, and they went to see Father. Oh, I was so proud of this. Okay, I gotta tell you this. So Father Lucien, who they saved, there was no Feast of St. Andrew for them. He had a very particular way of talking, the usual like Barovian accent, but like a father, like caring father. And I subtly had them notice. I didn't have them notice. One of the players noticed that I was doing the voice differently for Father Lucien when they came back, and they were just like, I don't think that's Father Lucien. He's talking weird. And it was very subtle. So I'm very proud of it that the players trusted me enough that it wasn't just me messing up my accent that day. Because what happened was the abbot had come and knocked out Father Lucien, put him in the basement sort of thing, and was impersonating him to try to get them to go and trigger a... what is that spell? It's like 7th level, where you do like a super glyph of warding, but it's like a total death trap. And so the players ended up activating it, even though they figured out, like, in the same moment that Father Lucien wasn't who he said he was. Like, they ended up triggering it later. And it was a big deal. And then, like, the werewolves were, like, outside. Yeah, that was a good time. And then Strahd even showed up later and tried to charm Vasilka, and then realized, like, what she was. Which was really just me forgetting that Vasilka is immune to charming. But it was fair, because it was like, okay, Strahd's realizing that that's Vasilka and he can't charm a golem. A flesh golem. And so that was a good time. The reveal of Vasily was also fun. Like, players figuring out who he was, but not until after he had commissioned them to go get a shipment that had been ransacked, and that included Strahd's armor. So he tricked the players into getting Strahd's armor. The paladin wore it like the whole campaign until at the end, in one of the Strahd encounters out in the wilderness, he just suddenly becomes paralyzed from the armor. So the armor had helped him out so much. His armor class was so good, but it really bit him in the butt when it really came down to it. And so that was also fun, doing the Vasily and Irina bit. And it was fun to try to figure out like where Strahd was versus when he was being Vasily and all that sort of stuff. What else was fun in Vallaki? The Festival of the Blazing Sun, I did do the whole stuff where the Burgomaster and his wife get burned, and that's when Victor fled. Absolutely, because he can get away. He can fly and do stuff. If not, like, destroy a whole crowd himself with Cone of Cold. If I remember right. But anyway, that was a good time. Excuse me. Alright, what else? I think that deserves me to look into the PDF and just remind myself if there's anything I'm forgetting about Vallaki. The Blue Water Inn, always fun. Players were like finding a hole in the gate so they could sneak in and out all the time without being like known of by the guards and everything. And I did Milivoy. And like all the Coffin Maker shop was so fun. What a death trap, but so fun. And the first group that went to the Coffin Maker shop, I actually had that be their first Strahd encounter, because he teleports there. And I also had this fun moment where Strahd had been hunting Esmeralda in his castle, and so when he comes through teleportation, after hunting her because he noticed something was going on, I had Esmeralda follow and teleport there, and she used holy water as the water component for casting create water, because she can cast that. And so I had her create rain that was holy water, and that helped deal with these vampires because the players were going to get wiped out. And so it was a good like burst of help to have Esmeralda suddenly show up. So it was a fun way to introduce her and also introduce Strahd as he shows up. And when the vampires failed and were like begging him for help, the one that was left, he just kind of like destroyed it. You know, kind of like in Demon Slayer when I'm blanking on the Muzan, the main demon, king of demons, when he can just like choose to kill the demons he's created. You know, it's kind of like that. That was fun. Let's see, the Keepers of the Feather. That's a great time, but I usually did that kind of stuff when they were out of Vallaki. Yevgeny and Zoldar. They're a fun guy, a couple of guys to role play. And then we've got the Mardikovs. They're great. I really like having a Strahd encounter where he's kind of like in town, not Town of Salem. That's the game. Is it just called Salem? What's that movie called? And like that old TV miniseries. Salem's Lot. And so, like scratching at the window, like the kid in that movie, it was so creepy. But having Strahd do that and like trying to charm people into opening the window and letting him in is really fun. And then we've got Wachter House. Kind of talked about that already. It's fun for the... Oh, I should talk about Lady Wachter. So they did something to anger her and basically kick her out. So she and her sons fled to Castle Ravenloft to basically complain to Strahd and state a case that he should help them because of her being a loyal servant and these new adventurers are trouble. And so when they did the dinner with Strahd, the Wachters were there too, and Strahd had the players, he told the players he was going to make them play hide and seek with the Wachters, and if they find the Wachters, that they have to kill them in the castle. So the Wachters start freaking out, and so they have like the night to do it. And that was going to be my way of letting the party explore Castle Ravenloft before the end game, like letting them figure it out, explore that place. But one of them did like a nat 20 persuasion on Strahd to change that plan, and so they did. It was like a good idea, and the nat 20, I was like, okay, I'll respect the nat 20 because it was reasonable. So Strahd said, okay, no hide and seek, but he did have one of his brides just chomped down on one of Fiona's sons, and it was like this horrendous moment. And from then on, Fiona Wachter just had this like vendetta against them because she saw it as they got her son killed, not her and like Strahd. And that was such a dramatic dinner with Strahd. I loved that. I'm proud of that one. So I have fond memories of Fiona Wachter as a sub villain. You know what I mean? And then I did use the tiger and Rictavio as kind of like a side character for a while until he suddenly became really knowledgeable, and the players were like, what the? And breaking into the RSX stockyard to investigate his wagon was fun. What was I about to say about that? Because there's the tiger, Rictavio. Oh, I was thinking of Blinsky. One of the players tried to like persuade Blinsky at one point, and so but like the way they were role playing, it almost came across as like a romantic approach, and the player didn't mean to at all, but they also rolled a nat 20, I think. And so I decided in that moment, I was like, why can't Blinsky be gay? And so it kind of became this sexual tension between Blinsky and the player. And Blinsky ended up being like a good ally to them until Strahd killed him at the gates of Castle Ravenloft later. But yeah, that was a good time. If you're still here, Nelda, you might remember that. Oh, and then Izek and like Irina dolls and how he's Irina's real brother, but and all that stuff. It was fun to roleplay him. He died in Nelda knows. He died at one point because he was teaming up with the players at the coffin maker shop, but the players kind of maneuvered it so he was between them and the vampires, and then as they started winning against the vampires, they started taking shots at Izek, and he started using fire on everybody and like burning the place down. So dramatic. That's fun, you know. Good times with Izek. I think Izek's one of my favorite NPCs to try to role play because he's trying to take Irina. He's got this weird stuff with the dolls. It's a good time. And then the Vistani camp, I really enjoy. So on Tabletop Bob's stream, I've been playing the Destined Ally for them. So I'm an NPC, and I've been playing as Casimir, you know, the Dusk Elf with his ears cut off and everything, terrified of Rahadin and Strahd, and he's pretty defeated. He's a defeatist, but he wants to go to the Amber Temple to revive his sister, Patrina? Yeah. And so he's one of the best NPCs. He's a lot of fun. And one of the groups, they had him and the Patrina situation happen very quickly when they in the final confrontation at Ravenloft. So I will talk about that later when I talk about the castle. But the Vistani camp, it's really fun to roleplay the tension between the Dusk Elves and the Vistani, and to roleplay. There's Arigal, and then there's what's the other guy's name? Luvash, yeah. So when Luvash gets his daughter Arbel back, and all that role playing, them trying to sell the fake potions, the Vistani are just fun, and I made Luvash like this really strong axeman, and so he was at that confrontation later. Because at one point, for one group, the Vistani swarmed Vallaki and thought that the players were like killing children or something. I forget exactly what it was, but they swarmed the church, and demanded the players come out, and it became this whole thing. Yeah, good times. And then the players sometimes would sneak away from the hovels here into the wilderness and hide for a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, so that's that. That's a lot of Vallaki memories for you there. I knew I'd have a lot there. On the Svalich Road going out west, I had Strahd do his like encounter on the road, where he's like part of a pack of wolves and they're attacking a fox, and the players wanted to save the fox, and it was like a big deal. I had the players earn a death ward at some point, and in Death House I do the dog too, Lancelot, that a lot of people like to include. A few of my players love dogs, and so Lancelot was a big deal, and I had him do the sidekick rules from Tasha's to make him stronger. Anyway, I did the whole thing where Strahd is in a wolf pack, dire wolf pack, and then he transforms and reveals himself as they're going for the fox, and they say to the players, like, so, give me the fox. I'm in charge. And the fox is a good allegory for Irina, because foxes are red, and Irina's got her red hair. And that was a really good time, a tense moment. I got a little graphic with Strahd, but my players were like all here for it, where they were basically being like, or what, to Strahd, like, what are you going to do? And what did he say? He was like, so I'll kill the two of you first, and then I'll raise you as undead, and you'll have to watch your undead friends rape each other, or something like that. And it was like super graphic, but I got a lot of permission from my players to just be really graphic with things like that, and so I knew that they weren't going to be like offended or anything, and they were just like, oh dang, because when Strahd makes a threat, you want him to make a threat, like a really villainous, scary threat. So that was a good encounter. And then I would do all those, like, not random encounters, but I made sure they popped up at least once along the way if they were out on the road a lot. I had the werewolves bury themselves on the roadside, and the players noticed there was like some shallow graves, and the werewolves pop out and ambush them at one point. Good stuff. But Lake Baratok and like Van Richten's tower, one of the players was clever with their familiar, and they unsummoned it and then like resummoned it inside the wagon that explodes, and so they saw all the explosives inside, like, uh-oh. And they figured that out through their familiar. So that was very clever. There were werewolves hiding like on the stretch of land and in the woods. Or rather, there were people in ragged clothing, and they noticed they smelled really bad because one of them talked to him on the way there. Because the werewolves had kind of been scoping out Van Richten's tower and stuff. So basically, they get to the tower and they talk to, Van Richten there. And they figure out there's so many werewolves waiting that they're like, let's just go out the back way. Let's go through the water. So they ended up putting Van Richten's wagon in the water, and they cast water breathing on themselves. And so they were kind of like Jack Sparrow, like when he's got the boat underwater. But under the water, it was really eerie because I decided to use the Devourer from Volo's Guide to Monsters. That really big, scary, undead thing that like puts people in its belly and just is like really scary. So I had that kind of just be like this like bottom dweller at Lake Baratok, and sometimes it would come up into the wilderness, and I kind of treated it as this kind of like wandering attack dog of Strahd that he just like lets loose on the countryside. And so they, under the water, they heard these like screeches, and they had to like hide behind like a rock on the bottom of the lake and wait for this thing to go past, and they could just feel its presence. They couldn't really see it. It's so dark, It's Barovia, and it's a lake in Barovia, so it's like eldritch, dark water, And that was a really good, eerie moment as they escaped that, and then they come out on the other side of the lake with the wagon. They took the wagon to Krezk, and they were attacked by a lot of werewolves around the wagon, and so they kind of like one of the druid like flew up wild shaped to get them out of reach, and then they blew up the wagon to blow up like dozens of werewolves as they were like swarming around it like zombies on the tank in the first episode of The Walking Dead. And so I really enjoy Krezk. Oh, before Krezk, there is that bridge here at like point number letter R, the Raven River Bridge. And I had my other group that didn't go under the water had this like troll under the bridge experience with the Devourer that was under the bridge, which they had been joking about it because I gave them a map for the bridge and they were like, oh, there's probably gonna be something under there, but they were like joking around. And then there definitely was, but it was under the water because it doesn't have to breathe. And the Devourer was just like scary to them, and they cast Banish on it and then like ran away, sort of thing. Banish is a pretty good spell, it turns out. Krezk. So Krezk is a good time. I do have an article, and I haven't done a video about it, but an article about how I would like hash out Krezk a little bit more, like give it more people, and like hash out like why they live the way they do, and how they interact with the werewolves nearby. I recommend it. But my favorite part of Krezk was the players interacting with the it's called a Burgomaster there, right? In Krezk. Let me review. Yeah, these. Oh yeah, Otto and gosh, what's his name again? Siegfried. They're fun. They're grave robbing mysteriously, but there's also the. Did I miss him? The picture of the. These two, yeah. The Baron and Baroness, Baron Kreskov and Baroness Kreskova. Yeah, the players really latched on to their tragic backstory with like their children dying, and then their recent daughter. Oh, one group, my second group, they had a boon where they were able to like resurrect 3 people. I don't remember if this is like an Amber Temple deal or if it's something that was like a homebrew, someone's idea that I got on the internet, and I was like, that's a good idea to give them like the power to raise 3 people, but they also like became more deathly themselves. And someone chose to raise the Kreskov's daughter, and so they made quite the ally out of them, and then that avoided the like grave robbing of their daughter from the I've since decided I don't like calling them mongrel folk, but that's what they're called. And that's because of legal Kimchi's talking about it. He's got a video about it, and he's persuaded me. But so yeah, I enjoy them trying to get in, like offering wine or helping with werewolves, because the werewolves would like take children from here. And I enjoyed the pool, and it being like holy water for them. And but the Abbey of St. Markovia is the real money. So what I really liked about the Abbey was Vasilka and the Abbot, hands down. One of my group just genocided all the folk living in their like prison. They're like inbred prison and everything. They just like Kona colded them with Victor's help. It's pretty dark. But the Abbot. So I used him. I roleplayed him like Data from Star Trek: The Next Generation, and he was just a lot of fun. I kind of like playing those like emotionless, stoic types. It turns out. Where's the picture of the Abbot? Is he in here, or is he like somewhere else in the book? But yeah. So it was really fun to have Vasilka and her limited ability to talk at first. But basically, I had one Strahd encounter there where the players all like really got mouthy with him. And so it was the Abbot and Strahd versus the players. And then once the player who got mouthy said sorry and surrendered, Strahd said, okay, I'll spare your friends, because they were going to die. But he said, but he's like, but you're coming with me to the castle. You're going to be my prisoner, and I'm going to give you chores, kind of thing. And I really enjoyed that. That was actually my dad. His character got whisked off to Ravenloft from there, and I had Strahd cut off his arm when he was asleep and put on a cadaver arm, but the cadaver arm was like loyal to Strahd, and so it was kind of like he had a I should turn up my light here. I'm getting fuzzy with my green screen. I have my new green screen. Isn't that cool? Behind me. But so it was kind of like he had a Gaish spell on him in the form of a hand that would work against him. And so that was really enjoyable. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that, I guess. Yeah, it's getting dark here, and so I guess the lighting I set up for my green screen is a little off now. But oh well, live and learn. I'm so proud of that idea, like the cadaver arm to be a Gaish spell, and he's like doing chores around the castle. So he got to explore the castle and learn its layout, and he was trying so hard to take notes because they were going to have to explore the castle and defeat Strahd there later. But then they ended up defeating him at the the fane outside of Old Bonegrinder, like I told you that group did. So all that knowledge he got of Castle Ravenloft was kind of for nothing. Oh well. Things go crazy when you kill Irina, it turns out. That's one reason I tell people, like, Strahd should really try to fight the players in Castle Ravenloft. Like, that's part of the experience, I think. But anyway, so back to Krezk. The Abbot fight was so fun when they ticked him off and he turned on them, because he's got his the way that he's set up. He's in his little shop, and not a shop, but his chapel, and right there is a big window, and he's got these big old wings and this huge fly speed. So I have him grapple players, and he just flies out the window and chucks them off the cliff, like the 500-foot cliff or whatever it is. Like, let's see. Because, yeah, the Abbot is right here in S13. He just chucks him off this cliff. It's like 700 feet. And so then the players, some of them had to try to like figure out how to like break their own fall so they don't die. But the Abbot would just like pick people up and chuck them off the cliff while like beating them with his mace. That was so fun. I remember that fondly. So I highly recommend people look at all the Abbot's abilities and his motivations and really try to have fun with him, because that's a good time. And figure out what his relationship is to Strahd and making Vasilka and everything, and like how much Strahd knows about it and how much Strahd's like okay with this fallen angel trying to fix things. Anyway, so moving along. Gotten through the main stuff. So, the Wizard of Wines, I enjoyed having all the little stick figures attacking everybody. But honestly, the Wizard of Wines is probably like one of the most least interesting locations in the Barovian Valley, at least for me. But I liked doing, I called them the Hearthstones. I don't remember if they're called that in the book, but the stones that used to be buried. So there was like the one at the Death House, the one that is taken now by the Druids and Barbarians at Yester Hill, and all that stuff. And so it's fun though. The players enjoy checking out the place and figuring out, and then once they figure out the Keepers of the Feather, they kind of have like a pseudo home base there, you know? So that's a good time. I'm trying to think if anything else of note happened there other than like ravens flying around and making people curious. But so Yester Hill, I enjoyed at Yester Hill Strahd showing up for one thing, and it being like this moment, you know, all the lightning around the stones and the players trying to get the barbarians to get zapped instead of them. All the barbarians coming up out of the grass was fun. I also threw in, there was an expanded monster manual I got that I used a few of the monsters here and there. There was one that was like a blood elemental, and so I had there be this hole underneath the Winter Splinter tree, or the, not Winter Splinter. So Winter Splinter is the, what's the name of that tree? It's I'm blanking on it. Yester Hill and the Gulthias tree, yeah. And so underneath the Gulthias tree was a tunnel you had to crawl through, which was really creepy for the players. and at the bottom was just like this room of blood and this blood elemental, and they had to defeat it to help clear the fane. I think one group I had it be a magnet elemental. I was just trying out different elementals from that book. It was fun. But there was almost some TPKs happening. Some of my players got mad because one of them got surrounded. It was just kind of like, oh, I guess I'll die. And I was like, oh, that's not fun. So it was kind of spoiled for me a little bit because some of the players thought they were just done for. And they weren't. They ended up doing just fine. But I enjoyed the graves and everything, and the wood statue, and finding the hearthstone there. All the blights. How massive the hill is. The wall of fog. Oh yeah, my first group, they tried to camp there after they cleared it. And that's when Strahd showed up to reminisce, and he like went and talked to the person who was on watch that night. And kind of gave him a challenge or like a test, and the player kind of failed with the way he role played, so Strahd like didn't like him anymore. It was just like, you know what? I've had enough of you. And Strahd just like started attacking him, and it became like this aerial battle with Strahd casting fly and also having Bucephalus and the players all waking up, and eventually he ends up leaving like, better than I thought, sort of thing. It was chaotic, but it was fun to have Strahd just suddenly like appear in the night, because it says in the book that he often goes there to reminisce in the fog with the visions of his old home, you know. So I like those things about Yester Hill. And then we've got Argynvostholt. My favorite thing that happened to Argynvostholt was I had that haunting option where the players would look behind this curtain, and there's an empty spot for a bus to go, and the players saw their own head, and then they're like whoa, and then like they look again, it's not there, sort of thing. And then that player's character got decapitated by all of the revenants. They picked a fight and just got swarmed by him, and these are soldiers, so like they didn't just like put him down and let him do death saves. They like put him down and just like kept attacking him and killed him, and so I narrated it as him getting decapitated. So it was kind of like he just saw his own head on a pedestal right before he got decapitated. That felt really cool. I also did the whole special delivery, like bat, there was somebody dropping off the like box of bats, and that was fun. And the players that looked up and saw the ghost of, who is it again? Whose ghost is that? They see up in the tower at Argynvostholt. But I described that guy. Is it Argynvost as a human? Is that who it is? Or is it... He's like up at the top of Argynvostholt. So they looked up from the bottom floor and saw him. Who do they see? I'm totally blanking on it. Who is that guy with the... What's the name of his hairstyle? It was like it was a new word I hadn't learned before. Maybe it's... Where is it, the description? I think it must have been Argynvost in human form. Oh, and I enjoyed doing all the like dragon imagery and hauntings down below. The dragon statue that doesn't do anything anymore. Oh, I don't remember. I'm not going to figure it out right now. But those are some of my favorite things about Argynvostholt. The players also had werewolf kids to cure there. And there were some werewolves getting away. Who was it? Did they have Kirill as a prisoner after that? I forget. But like running off into the woods in this like dark moment with one of the werewolves like trying to figure out the cure to help these kids that were turning. Yeah. There's also Berez, the swamp city. Swamp village. The players came around the back way, and I enjoyed Baba Lysaga like stumbling upon them, and she was just like dragging a deer like it was just a stick. you know, and she was just like, "What are you doing in my home?" You know, "What are you doing in my home?" You know, I gave her, like, she's a female, but I gave her a very masculine voice. I didn't change my voice very much. I think that works for an ultra hag like her. And her whomping tree, like, that just almost killed the party, you know? And the players had to figure out, like, what to do to, like, get the tree to stop, and also figure out how to deal with her and her floating skull. They cast enlarge, reduce, and reduced her skull around her, and that was really clever. They ended up defeating her, and I enjoyed role-playing her programmed illusion for Berez. All that stuff. Good times. And it was just, like, very eerie. The players, like, had no idea what was going on there. I enjoyed role-playing one of the Thistledown hair. Is that what it is? Let me Google that real quick to see if that's the... Is that the term? Yes, that's it. Thank you. Thank you again, Nuclear Donut, for looking things up for me. Filling in my memory gaps. Thistledown hair, that guy. So, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, Berez. I also had Berez have these, like, special mushrooms that, like, put spores on the players while they were going there. And then when they were fighting Baba Lysaga, the spores, like, sprouted up and, like, started to take over their bodies and, like, attack them and poison them. That was fun. But yeah, Berez is pretty massive, and so it ended up being this huge battleground with, like, every inch of movement players had trying to get around while Baba Lysaga was flying around and the tree was whomping on people. It was just a good time. I like Berez a lot. And then well, first I'll do Tsolenka Pass. So I did do I changed the rock to be this elemental bird from that book I told you about, where I was using some, like, just different monsters the players hadn't seen before. And I had some players, they came up the other side of Mount Gakis, and they came to the nest of that bird and, like, made a deal with it because it's capable of communicating. That was a lot of fun. But then the Amber Temple, players usually didn't explore it a ton. They would get to the Strahd, have a Strahd encounter with all those vampires in the boxes. They would go make deals, but, like, most of the temple didn't get explored. Usually they I don't know if they metagamed or not of, like, where to go in the temple, but it seems pretty natural for them to go straight down by that statue, and then there's, like, that crack, and you can go get through to everything. So a lot of the temple I didn't really get explored with my players, but I enjoyed them trying to jump Rahadin after he's, like, eating a frog there. The flame skulls almost killing the party, which is pretty common. Like, those things just dropping fireballs. They're pretty tough. The big amber golems were fun. Yeah. So I don't have but I think my favorite memory was in the Amber Temple, where all those vampires are, and Strahd came to fight the players, and one of the druid cast Maelstrom to make water, and running water is, like, bad for vampires, and so it was, like, really helpful for them, and Strahd had to, like, go escape and, like, go up the stairs to that, like, library area, and then they had this kind of, like, cat and mouse with Strahd in the Amber Temple, where one of the players went up to that statue of, like, what's it called? The statue emits that spell, Antipathy, Sympathy, and, like, enthralls someone to it. And so while someone was enthralled by it, Strahd just kind of, like, walked up invisible into their ear and was like, "Give me the..." I forget what it was, but I think it was the sun sword of his brother. And so they lost the sun sword. Which some people have opinions about me using Strahd that way. That's fine. Everyone does Strahd their own way. But that was one of my favorite moments from the Amber Temple. All right. So, last but not least, let me tell you about Castle Ravenloft, huh? So, I will go to my PDF for that one, and let's just kind of go through the different parts of the castle to see what I enjoyed the most. So, again, I do recommend getting the maps for Roll20 that I talk about in my Curse of Strahd retrospective tips. I really enjoyed the dinner, like I was just telling you about. The dinner was always fun. Like, the one group, it was like tents with the Vokters that I told you about already. The other group, they were trying to go down invisible because Strahd was late to dinner, so it kind of and they kind of were allowed to go explore the castle a little bit. So some of them went down and freed, because they wanted to find, again, Mad Mary and, gosh, she's listed here. But I think Mad Mary got imprisoned or something. They needed to save her. Anyway, they were freeing someone downstairs. It might have even been what's his face, the werewolf who's imprisoned. Well, there's her name, Gertruda. Yes. But the werewolf down in the dungeon is Emil. That's right. So one group, they were like freeing Emil, and then they rolled, because you know how Ravenloft has all these random encounters, and one of them is Strahd. They rolled Strahd as they were going back up the stairs after doing a jailbreak, and so they used invisibility upcast to hide while someone talked to Strahd, and they rolled well enough to have Strahd not notice they were there invisible. It was so tense. It was so fun, and I enjoyed that very much. So that was one of my first floor memories, and also the chapel and the players like having the zombies like fall down from above that are like up in the chairs, and the statuette. That's just a fun room. Those are my main memories from the first floor. Some of the players in their end game. Oh, so I will say the group that didn't get to fight Strahd in the castle, they did get to fight him there at one point, because I threw in not just the dinner, but towards the end game of the campaign, I had Strahd kind of hold this gala for all the nobles and the who's of Barovia, and it turned into this huge thing. And the players had to come down from the stairs, which comes into this area, the K8, where the gargoyles are, and that was fun. And then, what else in Castle Ravenloft? The Heart of Sorrow. That's a fun room with like the vampires that come out and the players fighting in that stairwell, and they try not to fall and die and get like pushed off. That's a good time. That beating heart that it is. I think I homebrewed that one of the hearthstones was like put into it, and it was like its core. And then the next floor up, the court of the count. That's where I did the gala, and that's where Strahd kind of didn't care if like people fought at the gala, and so they picked a fight with Kirill, and he like tackled one of the players and like out the window, and then like in his loop garou like souped up form, just like had the player character in his teeth and just like ran towards the gates of Castle Ravenloft and went to just and tossed him off the side. And that player got so mangled up, had a death ward, and so he just like fell and like had his body broken, and he kind of became an amputee after that. I'm sure he wished, yeah, hamburger legs. Nelda remembers. And you know why I described it that way is I have a friend who fell from a zip line and had to have his leg amputated, and he described his legs as being hamburger after he fell. And so that's why I described it that way, Nelda, when we played. That was an eventful court, and then Van Richten revealed himself, and yeah, you like that description, Nuclear Donut, yeah. And so Van Richten had set up a trap where he was pretending to perform as Rictavio. This is like some creative license, right? Like with how the spell works. But Rictavio, like doing his gesture thing around the throne, actually put down like a circle of power to like trap Strahd in that circle, while everyone fought Strahd's minions, and Strahd had to like stay like in the circle and kind of like just like smugly be like watching everything happen. That was fun. And then they all had to escape, and that's when Strahd came around with Bucephalus and like cut off their escape and like slit the throats of Father Donovich and Blinsky. It was a sad moment, and he's like, "I'll take them, but you can go now," sort of thing. You ruined my party. It was something like that. where he took their friends as payment. Let's see. And then other areas of the castle. Because again, I never got the players to explore everything. But like one player, he was exploring a lot, and he stumbled right into like Strahd's bedroom when he was like in a really vulnerable spot. Oh, one player ran into Rahadin solo and soloed him. It was the Death Cleric. Like, put his mark on Rahadin and then like did this big thing. I let it work with Finger of Death because he was Death Cleric. And so he had a lot of bad blood with Rahadin, and so it was like this good showdown between them. That was really fun. The player who got his hand amputated and had a Gayish cast on it with the amputee arm, he woke up in the bath in the, like, what is that, K43 by Strahd's chamber, and there's like just like blood everywhere, and he woke up there, and there was also the ghost there the module has. It was a good time. And then what else did we have? The redemption of Gertruda was a big deal, but she was at dinner, so they didn't have to like search in the castle for her. And they got some sense into her. The players really cared about Mad Mary and Gertruda, so they did their best role playing. I never got to use the portrait of Strahd. Oh, so the player who was solo in the castle with the amputee arm again, kind of the apex moment of him and his servitude in the castle was they had noticed that I think I had made it so the Feast of St. Angel wasn't Strahd's plot, it was one of the wives, and every time I made it a different one of the wives. And so if the players found out about her, Strahd would obviously be mad, right? So my dad, his player character knew about I forget which of Strahd's wives it was, but basically ratted her out, and so Strahd kind of like called them up to the top towers of the spires of Ravenloft and basically said, you two kill each other, like fight to the death, basically. And so my dad, as a ranger, got to like ensnaring strike her on like the side of the castle and all this stuff, and it was stormy, and he just really had this, he was really happy with this moment to just be able to one-on-one this vampire bride and come out victorious. It wasn't easy, but he made some good moves, and yeah, it was pretty awesome. And then this is where the real action happened, was down in the catacombs, because two of the groups, the group that split and was now two groups, they all came in through the windows on the cliffside to enter Strahd's parents' tomb, and then fought Strahd in the catacombs, where he was like darting in and out of the walls of all these different tombs, and the players would try to like get in and get at him, and they would end up freeing whatever was inside and all that stuff. Casimir is like reviving Petrina like during the fight, and one group that kind of saved them was Petrina suddenly like coming out of her tomb and just like time stopping and then like helping defeat Strahd. One group, they figured out like towards the end that they could do Wall of Force and that it would entrap Strahd, and they used the microwave method to destroy him, which is when you use like actual sunlight from one of the fortunes of Ravenloft, because the light goes through the Wall of Force, right? But Strahd can't get out, so it just cooks him. That's the thing I talked about in the easiest way to, it's like the easiest way that's pretty well known to kill Strahd. So fun fact, if your players are clever like that, don't let them get to the level where they can cast Wall of Force, or they will defeat Strahd quite soundly, unless he like counterspells or something. Which I think was a thing. I think he tried to counterspell, but they counterspelled him back. It was, the usual like counterspell drama. I really like when the players would fall into a trap and be teleported into that that tomb that has all the whites in it, the souped up zombies that like drain your life. That was fun. And yeah, it was a really fun place to fight Strahd. So I never did like the whole tour final fight like some people do, and that I recommend trying. But just fighting in his parents' tomb and having him all ticked off and then fighting him in the catacombs while he keeps healing, and the players are just getting more and more worn out. After he's gone, Arigal like betrays them as their ally, because it says like he will betray them, and it's like this whole thing. And yeah, then they get to see the sun come out through the light of Strahd's parents' tomb. It was a good time. So yeah, those are some of my fondest memories of running Curse of Strahd by location. So I'm going to keep this stream up so people can watch it as a video on demand, and I would love to have people comment their favorite memories, and also maybe if you have any questions about how I did different things, or why I did certain things that I described in this video. What a fun campaign, and I think once the new rules come out, I don't know, I might get a group that's never played before, and maybe even a few people who have played before, change it up. I wouldn't be surprised if in like a year or two they announce a new Curse of Strahd campaign or something, because it's just money. People love it. Anyway, please like and subscribe and comment if this is how you found me for the first time. And I wouldn't mind if you hit that notification bell. I don't post that often, so I don't think I'll be too much of a nuisance for you. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining me tonight. It's been a fun hour and a half just reminiscing about Barovia. So again, I'm Flutes/Jordan, and you have a good adventure this weekend and the rest of this week. And I'll see you in the next video, next stream.